Believe it or not, this video has been 2 years in the making. Welcome to the video where I explain the entire plot of my very first novel that I wrote when I was 13 years old. Yeah, it's gonna be as bad as you think, but also like really good at the same time and fun and entertaining. So buckle up because we're gonna be here for a while. If you've been following my channel for a while, you'd know that I have been writing this series called the Fostered series that I love very, very, very much. And today is the 10-year anniversary of when I started writing it. To me, as an autistic person, an anniversary like this is basically like the holiday of the year for me. And so I'm so excited to finally spill the beans on the entire plot for this first book. If you want a rundown of the entire series, including this book, I will link a video called How I Accidentally Wrote a 10-Book Series linked in the description where I kind of talk more about this, or you can watch that one after. So welcome to the world of Fostered, written by me at age 13, literally just a couple days after I turned 13. It's now a couple days after I turned 23. So that means it's been 10 years and I still haven't stopped writing with these characters. This series is like my entire life. In a society where children who've committed crimes are sent to behavioral detention centers, 15-year-old Reeve is on the run, having spent 2 years in a home after being accused of murdering her sister. She narrowly escapes during a fiery accident she may or may not have caused, and severs all connections with her allies along with her memory. Now, a year later, she forms an alliance with a group of young fugitives: tender-hearted Foster, 6-year-old Essie, and their irate leader, Harrison, who's suspicious of her motives and lets her know it. All seems in place until she finds out a team of chasers are searching for her to prosecute her for instigating the accident that left several dead. Unable to remember anything that happened during the accident, she suspects that maybe all things don't point to her, and with the help of her new friends, she sets out to discover the answer to one question: what really happened that night? As you can tell, this is a young adult dystopian novel. It was very much shaped by what I was reading as a 13-year-old girl in 2014. Who is the cast of characters? All these lovely people behind me with this giant, funny meter stick that I sort of decorated to point them out to you today. This is real fun to like, woo! Okay, so of course we have our protagonist. She's right here. Currently being covered by the confetti thing. That's Reeve right in the middle there, this girl. And she's 15 in this book, which is crazy because I still write with her now and she's in her 20s. But in this book, she's quite cagey. She's real mad at her family, which is like valid. I mean, we'll learn sort of later what kind of happened to her. She also has very few memories of anything, as the summaries suggest, and also holds a lot of guilt for some reason, but because she can't remember anything that well, like she doesn't really know why. And she's just been alone for the last little while. Actually, don't know how long. Then we have the next most important character in this entire series, Harrison, over here. And in this book, he is 17. He is described as an asshole, deeply protective. He has abandonment issues, and he also loves waffles. So like he's got range. We also have Foster over here on the right next to Reeve. And Foster is sort of like the next most important character. He's 16 in this book, and he's like, low-key, like a little healer kind of moment. He's also the kind-hearted mom friend of the group and has values, unlike everyone else. Then we have the last of sort of like the 4 core people in this cast. And that is Essie, who is represented, this one right here, by like a little Elle Fanning. She's living her best life, like as good as like a 6-year-old, which is how old she is, can live in a dystopian society inspired by, all the books that were New York Times bestsellers at the time. She loves giraffes. Later on in the book, she wears a yellow raincoat that she will never part with. And she also has cute, like, red rain boots that she wears all the time. So she's kind of adorable. Now, we have the villains, the horrible people who make everyone's lives very difficult. These people are known as the Chasers, which, it's such like a 2014 dystopian title for the villains. But we're going to start with Slate, who's right here in the middle. I've very like kindly sort of dubbed him as Prince Charming from Shrek. he's not anything like Prince Charming. Doesn't even really look like him besides, being blonde. He's like the token blonde man being a token blonde man. So I was like, who is the most like blonde man of all blonde men? And like Prince Charming. So Slate is 18. But he's a little weird, but like that's okay. Like he's fine. And of course, where there's Prince Charming, there has to be another villain from Shrek. And so his little sidekick partner in crime is represented here by Farquaad, Lord Farquaad, right in the corner. This is to represent a character named Riot. Now, you might notice that their names are quite funny because this was 2014. I specifically named Riot after the Paramore album. So he is 17. Like I said, he's Slate's evil sidekick. He has no personality except if he was around when Maze Runner the movie 2014 came out, he'd be like, oh my God, not me being like Timu Dylan O'Brien. Like, he's represented here by Lord Farquaad. And finally, my last villain is right here. She's represented by Shigo, and her name is Red. That's at least what she goes by. Her actual name is Celeste, which we find out later. She's in her 20s. I put her as Shigo because like she's like bad, but like also like okay, slay queen. She's the main villain of all the main villains. She sucks, but she's also like a brunette lady who's wielding a gun. So like that is the main cast of villains. There's one more character that we need to cover who shows up very much later into this book. That's over here. Philip, his biggest personality traits are that he is a redhead and that he has an English accent. That is like literally the main descriptors of him for a while, but we'll get to know him sort of later on because there's really no way for me to explain him this early into the book. A lot of the art here was drawn by my wonderful sister, by the way, so shout out to Sarah. So our story starts in the middle of the action. Quite literally. Reeve, our protagonist, is quite literally like mid falling down. I am also like constantly mid falling down. So like I think that's very real of her. But basically she's tripped on something, and it's not just something, it's like actually a dead body. She's not living her best life basically. Unfortunately, like the room is pitch black, and she only figures out she's landed on like a literal body because she feels hair and blood, and it's pretty gross. So like she's freaked out. Like I would be freaked out too. Like this is what. So my hand catches onto a few strands of what feels like hair just as it hits a warm mess, blood. I bite the inside of my cheek hard as to not scream out because now I'm freaked out. Like, same girl, like you should be. Lo and behold, this woman was shot by someone else that is also in this storage unit that has been abandoned. I don't know why they're in a storage unit. Like, is it giving storage wars like to another level? Now, the other person in the room very keenly makes himself aware to her by saying, who the hell are you? Which is a really good question. I would ask the same thing. But wait, there's not just one other person in the room with her. There are actually two. And Reeve gracefully slams straight into the other one, which is how she figures out there's more than one. And that guy knocks a gun to her head. Because she's smart, like she's no fool. She's not taking anyone's shit. She decides to play into this sort of damsel in distress vibe and hopefully like stroke the male ego, like maybe you can help me kind of vibes. She's just trying to manipulate her way out of the situation. It's not a bad plan, to be honest. So she's like, like, let me go. I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't mean to scare you. I was just coming in here for shelter, blah, 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 blah. She also says she has a family, like a little sister that she needs to protect. Of course she's lying. And in the narrative, she says that. And she also says some things to sort of get to know her. She says, I wish I had a family and a younger sister to care about. I wish I furiously protected her. She's literally like pandering to these boys' like empathy in order to give herself enough leeway to knock the gun away from her ambushers with the ease of a 2014 YA dystopian novel protagonist. And she slays at it. And shortly after knocking the gun away from her ambushers, a soft glow illuminates the room, shattering the darkness into pieces. Now, she's holding the gun and she points it at the first thing she sees. And in her words, that first thing is a boy. Now, he's a boy who looks a bit older than me, with what I make out to be honey blonde hair and the most pissed off expression on his face, which is welcome Harrison. Like, can you tell? Like, honey blonde, most pissed off expression on his face right there for all to see. Now, this also begins the first of, many dilemmas in how I describe Harrison's hair color. Is he blonde? Is he ginger? Does he just have brown hair? Like, does it matter? No. Also in the room with this pissed off looking guy is another boy around her age, but with dark hair, unlike his friend. She's feeling good, kind of like feeling herself. Like, she pulled off that James Bond stunt. Like, nobody else in that room pulled off that stunt. She did, though. And, she gets a little snarky with them. She's like, thought I actually had a family. Isn't that a rare thing nowadays? She asks, because it kind of is, In this society, like, a lot of children are not with their families anymore. A lot of them are separated into these facilities. It's kind of a rare thing. But before anyone can actually answer her, rhetorical question, a tiny blonde-haired girl steps out from behind the dark-haired boy. She's young. Very young. And of course, that is Essie. So cute. So the sweet face of this little girl single-handedly convinces Reeve to drop the gun she James Bond style like stole out of this other guy's hand. And she slides it across the room. She's like, I don't want any part of this. Like, it's fine. Like, there's a child here. Like, I'm not about to be the person to traumatize her. Now, she and the honey blonde haired pissed off guy, let's just say, have a bit of a back and forth with each other. They're determined to really like out alpha the other. Interestingly, though, she notes that although his words themselves are strong and demanding, I swear I can hear his voice shake. So clearly, like, he's nervous. Maybe he's nervous that, she's uncovered the little girl. Like, that was not supposed to happen, clearly, if she was being like hidden in darkness. So convinced by like the lightness of this little girl, Reeve introduces herself. Like, she just straight up says, my name is Reeve. Like, she doesn't lie or anything. And the girl skips up to her like really excited and introduces herself straight up as well. And is like, hi, I'm Essie. And then she like goes on to like expose her friends' names. So she goes like, that one over there. And she's talking to Harrison over here. She's like, that one's Harrison, but we call him Riss, which she does. I don't call him that anymore, but that's his nickname for like most of the series. And then she's like, that one over there, that one is Foster, with the dark hair. And Foster is actually the person who killed the woman. And honestly, it's a little shocking because he seems quite freaked out, already timid, clearly not as aggressive as his pissed off friend Harrison. Now, speaking of pissed off friends named Harrison demands to know, like, who the hell Reeve is? Like, why is she in this storage unit? Clearly, like, it wasn't an abandoned storage unit. Clearly, like, these three people were already sheltering in there. But she explains that she was just looking for a place to stay, just like they were. And she's just gonna be on her way now, like, nothing to see here. Now that she knows it's occupied, like, just leave me alone. I will get out of your hair, basically. But Harrison does not believe her story and demands she get out, which is funny because, like, she was going to. Anyways, so Essie then is like, Harrison, like, please, can, like, she stay? And then Foster also kind of gets in on it too because he has, like, no backbone, which is fine. Like, he's a sweetheart. And he gives his friend a helpless smile along with a shove. He's like, let her stay, like, it's gonna be fine. And, Harrison eventually agrees. He's like, fine, but he's not happy about it. He doesn't want this person in their life. So he says, one night. He also, like, threatens her life, which, in his position, I don't blame him. Like, he's the leader of his group and he wants to make sure he's safe. He says, so help me, you try anything or lead anyone back here, I'm not hesitating again when I aim that gun at your head. So she goes to thank him, like, thanks for not doing that, basically. But he shoots her a hard glance and she just shuts up. She's like, okay, fuck it, whatever. I'm not going to say anything nice to you. You clearly don't like me. And she merely just is like, okay. Then she just is like, okay, Harrison. And he's like, just call me Riz. We don't call him that anymore. We call him by his full government name. Anyways, it's quite ominous when he says that, at least to her. And Reeve ends the chapter by determining that for some reason, some gut feeling inside of me. I think that's the most sympathy I'm going to ever get from him. And that leads us into the next chapter. So we open with the squad in an abandoned bar. There will be a lot of abandoned places in this book because it's a 2014 YA dystopian novel. So Essie bounds over to Reeve. Bounds. What a great verb. Bounds. And, she's very excited to have a girl in the group and also to do something like girly with Reeve, whatever that means. So Harrison immediately is like, nah, we're not doing that. You're not doing that. And he and Reeve argue about motives. Like, he doesn't want this 6-year-old going away with this 15-year-old. Like, he doesn't fucking know her. Like, I'm not letting her go with you. Now, Reeve insists that if she were going to hurt Harrison and his friends, she would have done it by now. And that like damages his ego. He's like, what do you mean you would have done it by now? Like, the audacity to think that you could actually hurt us, like that I would allow you to hurt us. Like, he doesn't like that. So now Foster steps up as damage control because he's like, this is going badly. And he tells Harrison to leave Reeve alone. Harrison just does not take it well, so they argue as well. Harrison literally says, just go to hell. And then Foster's like, Riz, his voice covered with hurt. Then Harrison says, you're still here. He meant it. He said, go to hell. And he meant right now. Like, take that flight. So Harrison's like really mad because like now his best friend like has argued with him. Like, he hasn't stuck up for him. Now he's looking like an idiot. He doesn't have like his authority anymore. His poor ego. So he ends up storming outside of the bar, which leaves room for Mr. Suave, who in this case is Foster, which is so funny. Foster and Reeve should not be a couple like at all. But in these books, they are. Reeve, finally is able to talk to him because he's like, hey, girl, let's chat. Now, he apologizes on behalf of Harrison and tries to explain that Harrison's just frustrated. He's a little shook. Now, Reeve doesn't want to cause any more trouble. She's clearly bitten off more than she can chew here. So she insists she's going to leave. She's like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be coming between you and your friends. And also, she was living fine without all this drama, like when she was alone. But Foster tries to stop her. He's like, don't leave, just stay with us. But she doesn't listen and exits the way that Harrison went. She's like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. But then suddenly, her head is knocked hard against a brick wall, as if that's not like literal assault. Do you have a concussion? Are you okay? But anyways, it's Harrison. Like, he has attacked her and he's confused as to why she's leaving all of a sudden and is highly suspicious of her motives. He basically is worried that she has kind of come to like spy on them for chasers that are clearly after them. If Foster already killed somebody, clearly have people coming after him. He's worried that Reeve is, siphoning intel to bad people. Reeve says, this is what he wanted, at least, for me to run and get away from his tiny family. But now that I know all of the information, that means I get killed before I can supposedly spill anything about it. So she's also aware that now she knows about Harrison and, everybody else, and he's not going to want her to go. So Reeve is irritated by this because she's like stuck. Like, she can't leave because then Harrison be like, you can't because you know about us. But then she doesn't want to stay because he doesn't want her to stay. So she doesn't know what he wants from her, basically. So she bickers with him and is like, you wanted me to leave. Like, what is wrong with you? And to get even, she then like literally like headbutts his ass. And then she walks into the distance, like, a badass bitch, So Reeve basically walks away into the forest where she falls asleep. Like, she often like goes into the forest just for fun, and she falls asleep there and ends up waking up to the sound of a cry. And in front of her when she wakes up is Essie, and Essie's like hella distraught. Like, she's crying, and she clearly like ran away from Foster and Harrison, the boys. And, in the distance, even Reeve hears them calling out for Essie. They're like, where are you? And when the boys find them, Reeve is like, you need to step away because, like, Essie's very upset. Like, she's crying. She doesn't know if, like, they hurt her, if they yelled at her. She doesn't want them to be near her if they're making her so upset, right? And, that's kind of reasonable of her. I will say that. But, Harrison doesn't like Harrison does not like that Reeve is trying to have more authority than he has because he has control issues. And so in a moment of anger, he swings at Reeve, which is not nice. But before he can actually make contact with her, like, Essie has got his jacket fisted in her palm. Like, she intercepted that shit so fast. Like, James Bond who? Like John Wick who? Like it's Essie time. You know what I'm saying? Reeve is shocked at this dexterity. Like this is a child and like she has clearly intercepted like a fight before it even started and kind of like impressively so. So Essie's mad. She's like, I don't want to go back with Harrison and Foster. I don't want to see you guys. I'm sick and tired of you. But Reeve kind of just sees that like the boys clearly don't mean her harm. Like now that they're in front of her face, she can see like they're really worried that Essie is gone. And so she knows that the boys really care about her and just want to help her. So she convinces Essie, actually, go back with your friends. It's going to be okay. Like I'm going to be okay. So Reeve's ability to actually get through to Essie rouses something in Foster because he's like, wow, like she was able to like really connect with Essie, like spoke to her very nicely. Like he appreciates that. So Foster then tells Reeve that, despite the fact that she says she's not going to stay, despite the fact that Harrison clearly doesn't want her to stay, he says that she's actually welcome to stay with the group. Like he wants her to stay. So also in that chapter, Reeve then asks Foster about his life. Like clearly they're starting to trust each other a little bit more. And so Foster reveals that he's been shuffled in and out of these juvenile detention centers, and they are nicknamed foster homes in this book. I don't call them that because it just feels kind of wrong to me now. So I just refer to them as like facilities. Because of that, Foster, his whole life has been in and out of these like really like horrid facilities. He doesn't actually know his real name. So then he reveals that Foster's actually a nickname that Harrison gave him. So Essie then interrupts their conversation, and that happens a lot. Just, Essie shows up, which is fine. She's really cute. So we're moving on to the next chapter, and Harrison starts out by apologizing to Reeve for being like a literal total asshole. They make amends, sort of like he's kind of impressed with what she was able to do with Essie, like to calm Essie down. Like the fact that Essie like ran away to Reeve like shows him that clearly like she trusts Reeve, and if Essie trusts somebody, like Harrison's guard kind of comes down just a little bit. Reeve then asks Harrison who that woman was in the storage unit. Remember the one who Foster killed? Harrison explains that she was specifically a chaser sent looking for Essie, and that Essie is oddly gifted in combat, which is kind of like explains why she was able to like catch Harrison's fist before he could, punch Reeve. In the next chapter, Essie wakes up Reeve, distressed that she's caused Foster and Harrison to fight over Reeve. And it's because they're not really talking. Harrison, again, is not really happy that Reeve is there. And he's also kind of annoyed that like Foster betrayed his trust and like authority in the group and like the leadership that he's been trusted with. Reeve and Essie sort of shuffle away from where everyone's sleeping. They're all, again, sleeping on the forest floor. That happens a lot. And so Reeve is like, I don't want to wake them up, Foster and Harrison. So like, let's just go talk elsewhere. Now, Harrison then finds Reeve concerned that she and Essie disappeared. Like, where'd you go? Like, are you okay? Now, Harrison in this moment seems to have softened a little bit and even refers to Reeve as family. So like, clearly he doesn't hate her. So then Foster joins them, that sort of typical, oh, we're all happy family together now. And they try to get an explanation out of Reeve, like, why did you guys leave, like, the campsite? Why did you walk away? Now, they don't want Essie to know that they're, like, talking about her, because, like, Reeve obviously wants to say, like, Essie was distraught. It was, like, about you guys, because, like, you guys are, like, stressing her out. And obviously, they don't want to have that conversation in front of Essie, because they don't want her to know that they're talking about her. But, Essie's, like, a self-aware queen, so she volunteers to sit behind a tree that's, like, not far away. So they can still have privacy, the three of them. While she's close to them, they don't have to worry about her. So then Reeve explains, why Essie was upset, but then, like, is caught off by, like, blood-curdling screams. And these are Essie's screams. Like, she is screaming. Like, she's clearly distressed. Foster actually stops Reeve from helping in this situation. Like, she goes to run toward Essie's direction, like, toward that big-ass oak tree. That 100-year-old oak tree or whatever, like, that Essie's sitting behind. She lunges for it, but Foster actually stops her. He, like, grabs her and won't let her go. And she's like, what the fuck? And, like, Harrison then, like, runs off and he's, like, laughing. Why are they acting like this? All of a sudden, it feels like they've just turned around. Like, they've gone evil. And she's like, this makes no sense. That's when they're all confronted by a woman who can't be more than 25, her hand gripped around Essie's neck. Who is this lady? And why is she, like, being so rude to this child, Strangely, this woman seems to know who Foster is because she calls him out by name. She's like, "Hi, Foster." Actually, I don't know what she says. Harrison, on the other hand, is nowhere to be seen. Like, where did he go? We don't know. The last thing we saw, he was just laughing and like ran away. Reeve is unable to intervene. Like, Foster will not let her go. And actually, Reeve is sort of like shaded by her own hair. So the woman can't actually see really her face. Now, this leads to what I thought was literally the most epic sequence of all time when I was 13 years old. So the woman who Reeve doesn't recognize demands Foster give her what she wants or she'll pull the trigger on the girl, who is Essie. Foster says, "We don't have anything." Don't really know what he's referring to. And then the woman like starts counting down. She's literally like 1, 2, but then, from behind them, comes another voice that goes, 3. Another voice says, right as I hear the hollow click of the loading of a gun. I turn to see Harrison, his gun now aimed at the woman. He's got a bullet in her leg before she can react, then has Essie in his arms and is charging towards us. So Harrison has come to save the day. Amen. Now, Reeve is like really upset that Essie was in harm's way. Like, she's really, really upset. And she actually cries. Like, she says that she doesn't cry. She literally says, "I've never cried in my life." But like right now she's crying. Like, I don't know how she's never cried before in her entire life. She says, "I never have, and I've never planned to." But she is just breaking down. Like, she's so upset that her presence there, like, has put Essie in some sort of harm's way, that she moved Essie, like, when they were sleeping, like, away from the boys, like, that they even got in this situation with this random woman in the first place. Then Reeve demands the boys explain what happened. She's like, "Who was that? Like, how do you know her? Why did you attack her? Like, Harrison, why were you laughing? Like, Foster, like, why weren't you letting me intervene?" By the way, we just have to assume they walked away from like Red. We don't actually know. So the boys inform her that Red is actually looking for Reeve. Now, she's called Red because I think it's a nickname that Foster and Harrison give her. Like, she's like evil and kills people or whatever. They inform her that, again, Red is looking for her. Red is looking for Reeve. This is because Harrison tipped her off to the chasers in an attempt to protect his group. So Harrison literally called up the lady who has been like after his group this whole time and is like, "Oh, you can't have me, but like, guess what? Like, there's this random girl that is like sus and I'm like gonna give her to you because she is bothering my group and I don't want her and I don't trust her here anymore." So he was really trying to get rid of her. So he called the chasers on her ass. Reeve is like furious and she storms off because she's like, "You said that we were family. Like, oh, so much for family." So in the next chapter, like, Harrison like attempts to apologize. He's genuinely like, I'm really sorry. But Reeve is like having none of it. She does not give a fuck. She's like, "I don't forgive you." She storms off from him and then finds Foster reading a bedtime story that I don't know how they have a bedtime story. They have a book, like a picture book, and he's reading it to Essie. It's really cute. At the same time, Reeve finds out that Essie's ankle was a little sore, but otherwise she's fine. Like, she was sore just because I think like Red was like holding her, right? And then she like dropped her. And so like her ankle is hurting. This poor child. Foster walks off with Essie and Reeve shuts her eyes and she's surprised when Foster reappears concerned. He asks if Reeve's okay. She just kind of like closed her eyes because she's just like, "Ugh, I'm dealing with a lot." Then Foster's like, "Are you good?" But then, he apologizes for breaking her trust. Like, really sorry that, Harrison called the chasers on you to purposefully get you captured or killed. And they make up. Like, he didn't have anything to do with it. He just feels bad that happened, So eventually, after this, Reeve actually comes upon Harrison again, except like he's distraught. Like, really upset. Everyone's distraught in this book, but he's very distraught right now. He's crying. He's upset about being a bad person. He's like, "I'm such a bad person." Now she tells him he's not a bad person. Like, "You're actually a good person." And they actually hug. They make up. Then Harrison informs the group that he's leaving temporarily. He says he's going to go grab some things, a man of many words. So he gives Reeve his handgun before this, just in case they need to fend off more chasers. If Red shows back up and, causes a whole bunch of havoc. So before he leaves, he actually makes sure that Reeve knows how to use it. He's like, "Do you know how to use this gun? Like, I'm going to show you." But then she's like, "I actually already know." She says that because 2 boys she once lived with taught her, which, Remember that. So Harrison leaves and everyone's anxious. Like, oh no, he's gone. So clearly they all like him now. So chapter 7 starts and Essie will not stop asking where Harrison is. She's like, when's he coming back? Like, I miss him. Is he back? Like, is he coming back? Now, Reeve is like, it's been 2 weeks since Harrison left, and constant questions from Essie and constant silence from Foster. So, like, clearly Foster is taking his best friend's absence pretty hard, and Essie's also like, I need Harrison. Like, Harrison is like her big brother, and she, like, deeply misses him. And that's really cute. But speaking of cute things that are also kind of sad, Reeve ends up finding Foster crying. And of course, like, he's really upset that Harrison is not coming back because it's been 2 weeks. They haven't heard anything. They haven't seen anything. There's no sign that he's alive. I don't really know what the sign would be. It's not like they have cell phones. Like, they can't text each other, so I don't really know what they were expecting. But it's been 2 weeks, and, like, he wasn't honestly expecting Harrison to be gone that long. Maybe a couple days. So it's kind of cute because, like, Reeve comforts him. She tries to make him feel a little better. But they're disrupted again by Red. Like, she will not leave these people alone. Like, she's following them. Before Reeve can even react, though, she's literally shot in the arm. Like, poor Reeve. That will be one of many wounds that she has that end up barely affecting her. Red informs them that Harrison is actually dead. Like, he died. Like, sorry guys, he's gone. Like, just take him off the wall. Bye. But Reeve knows she's lying. Like, bitch, like, you're not very good at telling a story. And in this time, she manages to actually distract Red long enough for Foster and Essie to, like, take off running. And then Reeve passes out because remember, like, she is in a lot of pain. She's just shot in the arm. Now, chapter 8 starts and Reeve wakes up in a place she has no idea where she is. She's in a small cell. She says, "The cell I'm in is small, tiny. I can fully stretch out to the length of it. It has no windows, no place to even try to escape." So she just, like, accepts her fate. She's like, I'm gonna die here. Then, of course, she passes out again because she's still in a lot of pain, and she wakes up later to a blonde-haired boy who looks a bit older than Harrison, a flashlight illuminating his face frighteningly. He reveals his name is Slate. And Slate, like, actually attacks Reeve. He, like, stabs her in the shoulder with a blunt nail. Like, we're not really sure why, but, like, he does. And when she's down, she reveals he has a jacket of knives. So, like, you know, she's on the ground. Like, she's been stabbed through the shoulder with a rusty nail. He's like, I got this jacket of knives, and, like, I'm evil. Yeah, right? So the first image that pops into my head when I see the weapon is Slate scraping my skin raw until he hits brain, which is kind of a disturbing line. And I don't know why I put it in the script, but we're just going to keep going because actually it's kind of a good image, but, like, wow. So as Slate continues to attack Reeve, she stares at the ceiling and notices the faint outline of wood. Like, her night vision is coming on, bitch. Like, she can see there's like a door or something. Now, she manages to break free from him and grabs one of his many knives and hits him till he's unconscious. She doesn't stab him because she doesn't want to hurt anybody, like, permanently like that. She just, like, hits him with, like, the hilt of it or whatever, and somehow, like, he is unconscious. As Slade is unconscious, Reeve tries to climb up the small room. She thinks that wooden thingy is actually, like, a door that she can get out of that leads to, like, the roof or something. She actually manages to get up this room. Like, you can kind of think of it as, like, a tower almost. Like, it's like a column, and she manages to, like, Spider-Man #climbing gym her way up that thing. #grim strength. And as she gets higher, he wakes up, like, Slate. Like, he's on the ground, you know, she knocked him out. He wakes up and he comes after her, but she gets to the roof first. So she, like, pushes through this door, like, which was indeed a door, and she gets onto the roof and she starts running, and, like, he's coming after her. But guess what? She can jump off roofs. Like, she's sick like that, bro. So she literally jumps off the roof and, like, she lands perfectly fine. She literally lands on her feet. Like, no broken bones, nothing. Like, she's fine. Slay, you know? Then she, like, books it. Obviously, Slate's not jumping after her. He's like, I'm not. Like, this is just a job. Like, I'm getting paid minimum wage. Like, so she ends up, like, just booking it. She runs to an alley. And while in the alley, like, she trips. And guess what she trips on? The foot of a dude. And this guy is a dark-haired guy. And he shows concern at first for her. And he introduces himself. He's like, hey, I'm Riot. Are you okay? Blah, 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 blah. You know, I'm Riot, named after the Paramore album. And, at this point, Reeve is hysterical. Like, she is so scared. Like, Slade has freaked the fuck out of her. Like, who has a whole jacket of knives? Like, he's a little freaky. Like, she doesn't want to be in his presence. She's just been attacked, been stabbed with a nail also. Like, forget about all of that. She was shot, attacked, stabbed with a nail, shimmied up this roof like Peter Parker, jumped off a building, then tripped on a stranger's foot. Like, this girl is having the worst day of her life. So she's just not having it. So she starts muttering Foster and Harrison's name. She's like, Foster, Harrison, like, where are you? Like, I need you. And then that's when Riot recognizes her. Like, did you just say Foster and Harrison? I know them. You're Reeve. You must be Reeve. He does offer to take her to them. He's like, you know what? Like, I know where they are. Like, we're friends, blah, blah, blah. But then, guess who enters the alley? It's Slade. Oh, God. He, like, caught up to her. Like, maybe he, like, ran off the roof, too. Like, shit. She did not think of that. Then, strangely, like, Riot's attitude sort of changes a little bit. And he's like, don't you remember me? And then she starts to panic. Like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, Slate's right there. What do you mean? Like, I don't know you. Anyway, she doesn't know any of them. Then Riot literally puts a knife to her throat. One second, he's like, I'll take you to your friends. And the next, like, he's attacking her. But then she manages to disarm him because, like, that's just one of her personality traits. And then she attacks Slate. Then she just starts booking it again out of the alley, really freaked out by these two dudes. She doesn't know who they are. She doesn't know why they would say that, they know her. And then she literally runs into a brick wall. Like, the quote is literally, when I slam into a brick wall, the extent of my gratitude for being let off this pain is surreal. Why she ran into a brick wall, I don't know. Like, I don't know. It's not explained. Now, chapter 9 opens, of course, with Reeve somehow surviving because she has 9 lives. Like, chapter 9, 9 lives. She literally hears some dude above her talking, and he's just talking. He seems like concerned. He actually says, geez, above her, very poetic, right? Then she passes out because she's, like, not doing well. Like, she's hella injured. It's just not happening. And then when she finally wakes up, she has no idea where she is. But then, there in the corner is Bestie of the Year. Guess who? It's Harrison. Hey, girl. We thought you died. What happened to you? Now, his reaction to her waking up is really profound. He says, holy shit, Reeve. They reunite with some banter, some back and forth, like, oh my God, you're alive, blah, blah, blah. Now, then Reeve explains what led to her almost dying. Like, how the fuck did you end up here? Like, why did you run into a brick wall? Harrison basically asks her. And she recaps being taken by Red, being attacked by Slade, and, jumping out of the roof and shit. Harrison starts to get kind of, like, self-loathing about this. Like, he feels like he failed everyone. Like, oh, if I hadn't left, you'd be okay, or whatever. And she's like, okay, you're like 17. But he snaps out of it eventually when Reeve describes the other boys who attacked her. Now, she didn't go into too much depth. Now she does. She's like, there's this kid named Riot and there's this kid named Slate. Then she, like, reiterates that she's super weirded out by the fact that, they asked her if she remembered them because, like, she doesn't know them. Like, why would they ask her that, Then Harrison's like, nah, don't worry about it, girl. But they somehow move past that in the conversation. Whatever, it's not that big of a deal. Now, then Harrison explains that he found Reeve because he just, like, stumbled upon her. Like, we don't know how. We don't know what the logic was. Like, he just stumbled upon her. She then asks him, like, okay, you stumbled upon me. I ran into a brick wall, etc. Can you take the nail out of my shoulder? And he's like, no, I don't want to do that because, like, he doesn't think that is a good idea. He doesn't want to do it. He's kind of scared to do it. After she keeps pressing him, like, you need to do this. Like, there's a nail in my fucking shoulder. It's rusty. Like, you need to get that shit out of here. He does do it. And, she doesn't have a nail in her shoulder anymore. But he does freak out that he's hurt her. And that's kind of like a big thing for Harrison. Like, he's worried that he's actually hurt Reeve, who, like, he didn't fucking like before. But in his grumbling, he actually is, like, moving around so much that he's, like, big floofy hair. He actually reveals a scar on his forehead. She's never noticed this before, maybe because, like, his floof, like, his Justin Bieber floof hasn't been, like, flying around. She's only noticed it now. She's so concerned. She thinks he was hurt. Like, what happened to you? But then Harrison clarifies that the scar is indeed old. It was from a long time ago, he says. And when Reeve is like, what do you mean? He leans in and, as if she's supposed to understand all of this, literally says, and I quote, Waffle will always fight for freedom, life, and each other. Terrible, terrible, terrible acronym. Chapter 10 is here, and of course, we're going to find out what is waffle and like why is Harrison being poetic about it. So Reeve is like actually horrified after what Harrison said, because he's uttered the word waffle and like it means something to her, and it's not like the dessert. But readers don't know why she's so horrified. Like, it's not clear. Does she have something against waffles? I don't know, maybe. But this isn't actually a laughing matter to her because she's horrified, like legit horrified. How does Harrison even know what this apparent acronym means? You know, what do you mean we always will fight for love and freedom and whatever shit? You know, Harrison admits it's actually because he was the one who came up with the acronym, and that he and Foster were actually the two boys who taught Reeve self-defense all those years ago, you know, like everything about guns, where I don't know how they would know. Anyway, remember from earlier, before, you know, when he gave her the gun before he left, hey girl, do you know how to use this? She's like, yes, two boys showed me. Well, guess who the fuck those two boys were? You know, they were Harrison and Foster. Then Reeve like starts freaking out because she doesn't remember any of that. And she's like, what do you mean? Like, it starts bringing back some bad memories that she's like clearly repressed. Now, Harrison is making the situation worse. Like, he doesn't mean to, but he literally is, by being like, well, this is why I was mean to you, because I was like, why are you pretending not to know us? Like, he was concerned because he's making it clear now that he's known who she was this entire time. And what he's proposing is that they used to be friends. Like, they used to live together. Then Raven says she doesn't remember that. And he's like, what do you mean? Like, oh yeah? Then he info dumps a whole bunch of backstory of when they were held together in a facility. And Reeve was playing around with an explosive that was, for some reason, easily accessible to them, and they only survived the explosion that she set off because Harrison got them out. Like, he busted them out of there, like, with his bare hands. Reeve is super distraught to hear this and insists it can't be true. She's like, what do you mean? Like, I did not blow anything up. But Harrison pleads with her, like, this is true, like, this actually happened, like, I know who you are. They conclude in the explosion that she hit her head and is now experiencing amnesia. And, they make up, everyone's friends again, the truth is out, etc., blah, 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 blah. Now they begin walking back to Essie and Foster on their way and notice someone has written waffle in the dirt with a stick. Like Hansel and Gretel, like the little pebbles. And this is how they find Essie and Foster. They just follow little waffles written in the dirt in the forest floor. You know how I told you? Forest floor is like a real important setting. Then they end up actually finding Foster and Essie. Foster's so relieved. He ends up like threatening Harrison, is like, never leave me again, because like you're my best friend or whatever. And then Harrison's like, yeah, by the way, I literally told her everything. Like, I told her that you know who she is, that I know who she is, like, that we've known this entire time, and that we were, like, kind of freaked out that she didn't know who we were, Everyone actually feels kind of good about that. It's like, oh, the truth is finally out. We really can feel like we can trust Reeve now, because, like, it's clear that she genuinely just did not remember anything. Like, she hit her head. She wasn't just lying, like, to get reward money or to, like, turn us in or whatever. Like, she genuinely didn't remember us. Then Foster kind of walks away with Essie, and it's just Reeve and Harrison alone. And when, everyone's out of earshot, Harrison kind of leans into Reeve and asks to tell him everything that she remembers from after Waffle blew up. Waffle is what they'll call where they used to live, right? That's going to just be their place name. They call it Waffle. So he wants to know what happened after that explosion. So Reeve obviously doesn't want to do this because she's still very injured, and also, like, these are traumatic memories. Like, she doesn't want to try to remember. She also barely remembers. Like, her mind is just automatically not remembering. So she tells Harrison she'll explain everything that she does remember, as she sort of remembers it, with Foster there, because she doesn't want to have to remember twice. And, I think that's actually a fire line. They're then interrupted by Essie, queen of interrupting, who's excited to see Reeve. But when she sees the blood on her, like, because Reeve is hella bloody, she gets really freaked out. And then Reeve is kind of hurt by that because, Essie's, like, rightfully freaked out by her. But then she, like, limps away because she doesn't want Essie to see her bloody because she knows it's scaring her. But, like, she kind of feels upset that, like, that was the reaction. So this then leads her to running into Foster, who notices she's still badly hurt. Like, obviously Sis was like stabbed in the shoulder, like shot, like jumped off a building. Like she's not doing well. Foster actually offers her a rose, which is kind of cute. She's flattered and she's like, oh, that's really sweet of you. But then he explains that, he's collecting the flowers because like roses help stop bleeding. So he's like, it's also for you, though. He's like, really sorry that I don't have any bandages or anything. Because, like, if not, I would, like, help you because, I'm, like, hashtag a healer. But then she's like, you can just use my jacket. She's always wearing this iconic purple jacket, which, I colored in, like, in this portrait that my sister drew. Like, it sucks because, like, this is my iconic jacket, but, like, it's literally shredded through. Like, it's got stab wounds and, like, it's been torn up and shit. Like, I have to throw it away anyway. So I'm mentioning the jacket because this does become important later. So the two of them walk back to Essie and Harrison, and Essie apologizes for freaking out. But, she's sick, so, like, I don't really blame her. This does, though, lead Reeve to proclaiming she's finding the squatter car. Like, I don't know why. I feel like she's just kind of fed up. She's like, I had to jump off a building and, like, fight off a whole bunch of people today. Like, let's just get a fucking car. Like, Grand Theft Auto time. Reeve says, we're not getting anywhere with the running. I'm sick of it. That's kind of the vibe. We're not getting anywhere with the running. I'm sick of it. I'm so sorry. Anyways, so Reeve finds a driver on a desolate road, and she gets the driver's attention. She's like, hey, waving the driver down. Now, the woman is sus of her and literally threatens to hurt her. She's like, who are you? Like, you're probably a criminal or whatever. But Reeve is an actress. Like, she was born for this moment. So she puts on her best impression of someone that's, like, afraid and lost. And so, through this, she's able to scam the driver's ass and steal her car. So then Reeve wakes up sometime later, because she wakes up a lot in these chapters, delirious and in pain with someone consoling her. Like, she's just not feeling good. Remember, like, she's hella injured. Foster kind of patched her up with her jacket, but that's, like, literally fucking it. Now, we find out that the person consoling her is Harrison. He explains that Foster's gone out for medical supplies to help her because she's deteriorating. Like, she's not doing well. Now, she passes out again, but when she next awakens, someone is cleaning her wounds, but also being really mean to her. Like, they're talking mad shit about, like, what did you get yourself into? Like, you're always doing stupid shit like this or whatever. No, she doesn't know who it is because she's so delirious, but she's like, if this is Harrison, like, that would be so mean. She does awaken again, and she's in the back of a car, and she assumes it's just with, Foster and Harrison. Now, she slowly gets up and kind of steps out of the car, and in the distance, she sees a little girl with blonde hair, whose back is turned. She assumes the little girl is Essie, right? But then the girl turns around and her face is severely injured. She's got, like, cuts and it doesn't look very good or whatever. And so Reeve is, like, really, really freaked out by that. But she doesn't have time to react before Dollar Store Foster and Harrison show up. That's what I call them, Dollar Store Foster and Harrison. Now, Riot and Slate, who are Dollar Store Foster and Harrison, if that is not clear, have apparently kidnapped Reeve. But Reeve is confused as to why, because she has no recollection of that happening. So if you're confused as to why, like, she doesn't know either. She also doesn't understand why they saved her life, And because she's realizing that the person, like, talking mad shit about her while they were, like, cleaning her wounds, that wasn't Foster or Harrison. She realizes is one of the two of them. It was most definitely Slate. She doesn't know why they actually did that. But then Slate's like, well, because, like, I want to kill you. I don't want you to just die. I want to kill you. So, like, he doesn't really make himself, look any better. She's like, oh, okay. Anyways, so in the car, she turns to the little girl. They start driving away. And the little girl's, like, in the back with Reeve. She reveals her name is Tessie. Yes, Tessie. Not unlike Essie. Tessie. Essie with a T. That was on purpose. I did it on purpose. It doesn't really make any sense because they're not actually related. Her name is just Tessie. So we have Dollar Store, Harrison, Foster, and Essie. Okay. During the car ride, Slate then reveals that he didn't know Reeve reconnected with their old arch nemesis, who in this case are Harrison and Foster. Like, Slate and Riot hate those two. It's giving Tom and Jerry versus, like, Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy. You know what I'm saying? He also reveals that they've also kidnapped Foster and Harrison. Yikes. Alongside Essie, because they're super evil. So, like, literally everybody is screwed. Then he reveals that their boss, this is when we find out her name is actually Celeste and not Red, but, they continue to call her Red, offered the two of them jobs, Harrison and Foster jobs, after Reeve caused the explosion. We're not sure why, But maybe they have a special set of skills like Liam Neeson and Taken. Reeve is so mad at hearing this that she escapes her restraints. Like, she's mad, kidnapped her friends. Like, how dare you? You know what I'm saying? Then she escapes the car. Slate and Riot then start ungracefully shooting at her. And this is really upsetting. But she literally grabs Tessie at the last second as a shield, which is grim. And you can kind of infer what occurs. So as Tessie dies, she like looks Reeve in the face and then calls her a monster. Which like I can't blame her. But yeah, so that's the end of that chapter. Reeve again is like super upset after everything that happened. And especially with Tessie, you know, the fact that like she used her as a shield. Like, she ends up running through this desolate city and she's just like screaming for her friends. Like, she cannot do this anymore. She's just shouting their names like, Foster, Harrison, where are you? Things like that, right? But then like she hears her name being called back. And at first she thinks she's just hearing it. Like, she's just like so tired and like in so much pain that she started to hear things. But then she realizes like voices are actually coming from a drain pipe, and she realizes that it has to be from the building that, you know, that pipe is attached to or whatever. So she breaks into the building like through a window, then breaks into the room where her friends are being held captive. I don't know how exactly she finds them, but she does. But when she does, she comes face to face with Red, who has a gun pointed at her. Harrison is low-key like dying in the corner, but also at the same time he manages to tell Reeve like, take the shot. You know, because Reeve has her gun out, like Red has her gun out, whatever. Then Red taunts her to take the shot. Like, yeah, Reeve, take the shot. Like, kill me. Like, I dare you to kill me. Like, I dare you. I dare you. Like, this is a woman in her 20s. So Reeve does take the shot, but she only hits her in her shoulder. Like, she doesn't, like, kill her the way that, you know, she probably wanted to. Red collapses, but literally keeps taunting her. Like, she never quits. And, you know, she calls Reeve a monster, which, remember, like, Tessie just called her. So, like, this is a sore spot for Reeve. As all these bad memories are, like, scooping back up, like, not only of Tessie, but, like, of, you know, her old home, like, blowing up and, like, all these kids dying. Like, she is, like, really upset. And so she, like, scoops up her friends, like, literally all three of them in one arm. Like, I don't know how she does that. Like, Superman, like, strength. Then she runs with all of them and collapses with them under a tree. We love the settings in this book. It's forest floor, random room, and tree. So chapter 14 comes around and Reeve tries desperately to get Foster to wake up. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's really worried about him, especially. He's not budging. Like, he's just out cold. Now, in typical YA fashion, she asks him to stay with her. Like, please just stay with me. It's going to be okay. And then, you know, they have a little romantical moment. Then Harrison comes to welcome back. So then he carries the plot by explaining, like, how they got into this situation in the first place. Remember, like, Reeve, like, ended up waking up in pain and Harrison was comforting her. And then she passed on. Then she woke up again and somebody else was cleaning her wounds, but they were being really mean to her. Like, he's trying to explain, like, how they got here. So he says that when Reeve woke up in pain, Foster went out to get medical supplies. Remember? But when he got back, Red ambushed all of them, right? So Reeve tells them then what happened between her, Slate, and Riot, like, you know, in the car. But she leaves the bit out about Tessie. In the ordeal, they lost the car, you know, the car that they stole from the ladies. So, you know, they have to be on foot. But somehow, like, they make it on foot to a motel that night to stay, and I don't know how they have money. Anyways, so since Harrison looks the oldest, he makes the arrangements because basically in this world, like, if you look like a teenager, like, the world is more sus of you or whatever. And so you want to look, you know, as adult as possible. And apparently, like, Harrison fits the bill. So he makes arrangements at the front desk while Reeve, Foster, and Essie, like, sneak in while he's distracting the guy at the front. I don't know. They're probably security cameras, so I don't know how that works. But anyways, everyone is relieved to have, like, a nice place to rest. Honestly, like, they really deserve it. They really needed that. So the squad reconvenes with their limited funds of $50. I have no idea how they have that money. It's just Harrison's. I don't know. So they'll have to stock up on supplies and new clothes since they look disheveled. So remember, she got Foster to tear up her old jacket. So everything seems fine. You know, Reeve's taking a shower, like, she's kind of calmed down. The day is passing, but, like, Foster notices something's not right. Like, she's just not acting right. So she starts crying, which is, you know, she's upset. But then Harrison asks her, you know, very gracefully, like, geez, what's wrong? a poet. So she keeps seeing images of like Tessie, like dying. And she hears like imaginary taunts from like Slate that she causes destruction wherever she goes. Like, he never said that to her, but like she's just hearing it in his voice, like, you're evil, you cause destruction, you're a monster, blah blah blah. But eventually concedes that her interactions with Slate and Wright are haunting her. Like, she doesn't want to lie to them. She's like, I can't take this anymore. Like, this is really bothering me. But again, she doesn't mention Tessie. Like, she doesn't mention the thing that's really bothering her is that, she really feels like a monster. So when everyone goes to bed, Reeve like doesn't. Suddenly, like both Foster and Harrison are too. Like, they did not sleep. They're just like, hey girl. Like they're like, how are you? And they clearly know something's on her mind. And now that as he's asleep, they're like, you can tell us. Like, you have to tell us. Like, we're your friends and you have to tell us. Eventually she concedes and tells them what happened with Tessie. And she genuinely feels like a terrible person. Yikes. She's horrified by what she's done. Like, she was really just trying to survive and get out of there, but like it's pretty bad. Both to Tessie, but also to the people that died in that fire, the explosion that she caused. But Foster and Harrison reassure that she's needed, you're not a monster, Moving on, chapter 15. Now, everyone is startled when suddenly the next morning at the hotel room, there's like a knock on the door. Harrison like opens the door. Like, he doesn't even bother checking. He doesn't, crack it open. He doesn't check the people. He just opens the door. And right outside is like some police officers and a woman. And this is actually the woman whose car they stole. So obviously she recognizes them because they stole her car. Now then Harrison attempts his own attempt at like, John Wicking his way through life, and then whips out his gun and opens fire and like shoots all these people in like the feet. Like, he doesn't kill them because he doesn't want to kill anybody. We'll get to that later. Foster has enough time to escape like through a window with SC. Like, I don't know, they just jump out of there. Everybody's good at jumping off of things in this book. But when Reeve turns back to help Harrison, like, hey, like, Foster and Essie are gone, like, let's go. Like, I have no idea how the people didn't like come after him already. She turns around and like, he's stabbed. He's stabbed in the hip. So then the next chapter starts and Reeve tries to tell Harrison, like, don't pull that knife out. Like, don't do that. But he does. And then he collapses like right after. Now, she manages to like drag him out of the window again. I don't really know how. She's got like superwoman strength. People are still shooting at them. I don't know how they're not getting hit. Clearly, they're invincible. They make it down the 10-foot drop unscathed, which is crazy. But then Foster starts panicking when they're all, outside the building. I don't know why anybody didn't exit the building to come find them. But anyways, he panics realizing that Harrison is hurt. Like, Harrison is his whole life. Harrison's his only family that he's ever known. They're not blood related, but like that's his brother, right? So Harrison insists, like, just let me die. Like, run away. This is so current Harrison coded. Just leave me here. Let me die. I'll be fine. But then Foster's like, no, like, I'm a healer. I was born for this moment. So he gets to work right away, cleaning out Harrison's wounds with medical supplies from the abandoned convenience store that they end up setting shop in. So they like run away somehow. Harrison explains that it was the woman who actually stabbed him. Because she saw him like shooting all those like the cops or whatever, and she's like, you stole my fucking car, stab you, So in the next chapter, the squad has actually created a plan to take the midnight train to Georgia. Now, this is Reeves' idea. I don't know why they want to go to Georgia exactly. It's not clear. So things go badly quickly when the ticket sellers realize, because she goes up to buy the tickets, that she is literally wanted. Like, they have a wanted poster of her hanging up in their booth. And she's like, oh shit, I did not know that. So Foster, who's been hidden safely away just in case something goes really bad, interrupts the ambush on Reeve, and they con their way into train tickets. So they manage to still get on the train. But on the train, there's an altercation that's, again, kind of vague, that I don't understand. I don't really get how it breaks out. It's fine. Like, 13-year-old being tried to arrest. But what you need to know is that Harrison literally jumps out of the train with Reeve. Like, that's literally all you need to know. Harrison jumps out of the train with Reeve. Despite his, like, hip and shit, like, they survive. Like, I don't know. Anyways, I'm not really sure what happened on the train again, or how Foster and Essie got out. Like, I'm assuming they also jumped out of the train and are, like, fine. But in any regard, outside the train, they're actually ambushed again by Slate and Wright. Like, they just don't want to leave him alone. Reeve tries to distract Slate by actually bringing up Tessie. Like, she's kind of messy for that. Specifically calling him out for hurting her. You remember, like, Tessie had, like, a whole bunch of cuts and, like, wounds on her face. And, like, Reeve assumed, like, because Slate's, like, fucking evil, that, like, he was the one who did that to her. but he actually wasn't. And he actually yells back at her, gets really mad when she says that. And he actually explains that it's self-inflicted, those wounds. But Reeve like doesn't stop and like insists that it's like really his fault that she's dead because it was his bullet that killed her. Yikes. Anyways, so Slate gets really angry to the point where he literally charges at Reeve, but ends up on the ground in agony. Like before he can get to her, he's intercepted. And it's Essie. Essie has taken down both Slate and Riot. Like, I don't know how, but remember, like, she's like a prodigy. Like, she's real good at this fighting thing. So Reeve again is like really upset about the whole interaction and like, oh God, everything keeps going wrong and like poor Tessie or whatever. So like she has a mental breakdown when they get to Georgia, which is like, that's okay. Like sometimes we need to have those moments. But, you know, the next chapter starts with her, again, waking up from, like, a trauma nightmare inside an abandoned school that the boys scoped out for shelter because, you know, there's a lot of those, I guess. Now, Essie, again, is being quite nosy and is like, so, Reeve, like, I heard you're really upset. Like, when she, right as Reeve wakes up, I heard you're really upset. Like, why are you upset? Like, what happened? And when Reeve tells her that she had a nightmare, she keeps prodding for more information. She's like, oh, well, what was the nightmare about? And then Reeve was like, you know, it was about my old home. And eventually, like, Reeve, like, reaches a breaking point where she kind of loses her shit and, like, starts screaming at this child. Because she starts having, like, flashbacks of, like, this explosion happening, and she's, like, really upset about it. So she's kind of yelling. Then Harrison interrupts this and is like, are you fine? Like, why are you yelling? And his presence, like, shatters the moment, and she calms down, like, right away. And I guess seeing this, like, Harrison's like, she's just like really upset. I can see that. So he comforts her and she's like, OMG, not us being friends. And, you know, she says, I don't ever want to let go. I want to have a friend, something I've never had. She clearly has never had anything. She's never cried. She's never had friends. Like, girl. So, of course, Harrison and Foster are super concerned about Reeve's mental health because she kind of seems like she's hanging on by a thread. Now, they're like, hey girl, how you doing? You know, they try to talk to her, especially because she kind of snapped at Essie, and she ends up spilling the beans that actually she feels terrible. Not only about, you know, yelling at Essie, but about being the reason behind the explosion that killed a whole bunch of people, you know, and it also separated the three of them. So she eventually gets so distraught that she just crawls into a storage cupboard. Like she doesn't even want to talk about it anymore. She just crawls away into a cupboard and she just sleeps there. But then anyways, Reeve and Harrison make a brief intermission like the next day to go like steal waffles, which is a really cute scene. And then the squad head to Walmart to go buy better clothes, which, you know, if you remember, was a plan they made a while ago. You know, they're going to buy the new clothes because, you know, Reeve doesn't have a jacket. Like everybody's like really disgusting. They need to get some new stuff. And when Reeve is cashing out, you know, she ends up buying SC like the yellow coat and stuff. The cashier is kind of sus of her and she notices that. And she's like, oh shit, this is about to be bad. But then he ends up waving her off and she's like, oh my God, like he just spared me. But she's still on edge as they head toward the security thingies, you know, at the exit. And she starts like sweating. Like she's praying, like, please don't go off. Like these alarms will not go off. Like they can't go off. And then they go off. So things have quickly gone to shit since these alarms have gone off. As in, Reeve and Essie are literally being detained. By who other than our boy Slade. He's back. So he literally drags Reeve away into a vague room, like away from Essie. She doesn't know where Essie is. She's freaking out. And she doesn't know what the room is. Like, it's dark in there and she's freaked out. And he taunts her with the fact that he's going back to kill Essie. Now, Reeve tries to fight him at this, like, no way are you going to do that. She literally even, like, throws a stapler at his head because I think she realizes she's in an office. But he gets the upper hand and stabs her leg. Thankfully, Foster intervenes and gets her out of there, and they start to run away. Like, he carries her out of there. So very suddenly, Foster is hella concerned and tells Reeve to close her eyes. So she's confused but passes out in pain. Now, when she awakens, she's in the grip of, like, some random woman who, like, won't let her go. And she does not want to deal with Reeve. Like, this woman is sick and tired of Reeve. Like, Reeve is being really aggressive with her, like, trying to get away, blah, blah, blah. So she calls in for backup, and guess who backup is? It's literally Slade. Except this time he's got Foster in like a chokehold with like a knife up against his throat. Like he's threatening his ass. So obviously Reeve kind of chills out, like, oh shit, don't kill Foster. So the woman then starts interrogating Reeve, like, who are you? And who is Foster? Like, they don't know who they are. I don't know why like Slade didn't tell her, but anyway. And because Foster's safety is at risk, Reeve admits their true identity. She's like, okay, fine. Slade's about to like kill him. And Reeve is like, okay, fine, I'm Reeve, la la. Like, this is my name, this is his name, blah, blah, blah. But she doesn't want to answer questions about Essie and Harrison because Essie and Harrison are nowhere to be found. They're not actually like in custody. So she doesn't want to tell them anything, that they got away, that they ran away, where they went. So Reeve then promises Slate that she'll literally do anything if he just leaves Foster alone. After that, Reeve is led to a guarded facility where she's greeted by a woman who calls herself Coleman. Coleman actually overlooks the new facility that Reeve and Foster will be staying at. So they have been brought back, like, into custody, bitch. Like, they're not leaving. And the last time they were in a situation like this was when they were in Waffle and Reeve blew that shit up, Eventually, like, Coleman leaves Reeve alone in like this infirmary looking room, and this dude walks in. Or shall I say, this dude walks in. This one right here, the little redhead on the corner. And of course he's English. I don't know why. Like, no context English person in the squad. So his name is Philip, like I mentioned. No connection to the royal family. And Reeve is like, who are you? Because like he doesn't look that much older than her, but he clearly seems to have like privileges at this place because he's not being like bossed around. Like he seems to have some sort of like air of authority about him. Turns out he lives there. Like he is also like being held there against his will. He lives there, but because he's a healer, he has skills, he has more privileges. And that includes like, having a little more authority, like having a little bit more leeway with pushing back against the system and shit. So they need his labor. Yikes. So he patches up her many wounds and is pretty nice to her, honestly. She's kind of surprised by that. And she's like, okay, I kind of trust you now, but also I'm super worried about Foster. So can you go check on him? And he's like, okay, I will. He promises her that he will. So now it's like the early morning, and Philip scares the ever-living shit out of Reeve by like sneaking into her room. But he's just there to give her an update on Foster. This is the only time he could actually like sneak in without being caught or whatever. So he tells her that Foster's okay, but that he did sprain his ankle like in, the whole melee that was occurring. But, Philip is treating it. And honestly, Philip and Foster were the original OTP. Like the next day, Reeve is picking up her lunch in the cafeteria when she feels a tug on her arm. And she's like, who is this? She turns around and it's a little girl. And the girl reminds her so much of Essie. And the girl is like eyeing her uneaten apple. Like she's clearly hungry. And when Reeve is going to give it to her, a guard ends up attacking the girl. And it's really upsetting. Reeve tries to intervene. But then the guy strikes her face and it's bad. She starts bleeding because he was holding a knife and shit. I don't know. Anyways, so Reeve is fighting him because she's mad. Why did you hurt this child or whatever? She gouges out his eyeball and shit. The guy gets so mad, he drags her out of the room. But then our English hero, Philip, is sir, you're literally not you're literally not helping. And because he has some authority here, he's able to get Reeve away. He's like, you need to back up. Or sorry, he's English. He's like, you need to back up, sir. And he does get Reeve away, but not before she sees what happened to the little girl. And let's just say it was she's not doing good. Now Reeve is understandably very upset at how corrupt this facility is. Why are these people allowed to just hurt anyone willy-nilly over stupid shit? To kill anybody, young people, children, and Philip ends up explaining that it's a really fucking corrupt institution, and that's just sort of a thing that happens. To calm her down a little bit, because Reeve is starting to realize, this place is fucking crazy. He ends up taking her to see Foster, who, he calms her down a little bit. It's good to see her friend. He explains that he tried, what happened, when they were running, remember? She ends up kind of waking up in his arms, and Foster's like, it's okay, it's gonna be fine, just close your eyes. he ends up explaining to her like that right after that he tried to get Reeve out of the store before they were captured, but he wasn't able to. And so right after that they were captured. So Foster brings up that they need an escape plan. She's like, escape? And he's like, yeah, we need to get out of here. And she's like, but can you? Because he's actually like injured. She sees he has crutches, like his ankles hurt. He's like, I need to get out of here. And they kind of argue a little bit, but it's not really important. So we're gonna move on to the next chapter. So Reeve is tasked with doing the dishes. Like, that's one of her chores at this place from the mess hall. When Philip shows up to help her, he's like, can I help you with that? The accent is all over the place. I'm so sorry for any of my English viewers. He offers to help her and Foster escape, and Reeve agrees. Like, she's actually kind of surprised that he said that, but like clearly like Philip does not agree with what's happening. So Reeve wakes up to Foster at her door very suddenly. Like, he's knocking at her door. And he looks startled, but when she asks what's wrong with him, like he doesn't say anything, and that's like really unlike him because like he's kind of communication king. Like he doesn't just not say shit when people are asking him questions. Now he leads her to a library sort of thing in this place, and Philip's actually already there. The two of them clearly have been spending like the last several hours like poring over something together. This is when she notices a blinking red light strapped to Foster's neck. Foster writes down that it's literally an explosive and that he can't speak because if he does, he's going to explode. And then Philip pushes over a stack of file folders and he's like, this is why they did this to Foster. And it's because when Reeve opens up the file folders, there's tons of information inside. And it's information on kids, like other people who were at these facilities, teenagers, especially, namely, there's a girl, she reads her story, who is seemingly kidnapped from her like loving parents who still wanted her in her home and brought to that facility. And then she was killed and her parents were killed when they were like asking too many questions. Now, more stories in a similar vein are in these file folders, just tons of information on these like corrupt murders, basically. And also like kids being like forced into these facilities against their parents' wishes and, then they're killed. So Reeve is like justifiably like really horrified by this and asks how Foster even found that information. Now, Philip explains that he found the information, on behalf of Foster. He's explaining because like Foster's already written all this shit out to Philip like in a panic or whatever. But Philip explains that Foster did find the information by accident while going through some books. And he ended up like coming upon some hidden study in this room or whatever. And inside the study, an alarm was set off, which is how they caught Foster and why they literally like strapped an explosive to him so he doesn't tell anybody. Like it's a threat, like if you speak again, if you use your voice again, it's over for you. But then Reeve is like, wait, who would have had the medical knowledge to like implant a explosive device into somebody's neck? And then she turns to Philip and she was like, it was you. And she is really mad. Like, she attacks his ass. Like, honestly, she's like, I trusted you. Like, I thought you were our friend. Like, you were an ally. I thought you were trying to get us out of here. But then Philip is like, I'm so sorry. Let me explain. And he explains that Coleman, like, forced him to do it. And he's like, if I didn't, he would kill my friend Luna. And he starts to cry. And he's like, even though, like, I did it just because, I was stupid and Coleman said that she would kill Luna if I didn't do this. I believed her, and despite Coleman's promise, like, even though I believed her, she still killed Luna, my friend. And it was after I'd implanted this explosive into Foster's neck. So it's not like it was even like for anything because my friend is still dead. And I did this to your friend, and I feel so terrible. He says that. Then Philip, like, turns to Foster and is like, I'm really sorry about everything. Can you please forgive me? And is there anything I can do to make this up to you? Basically, like, can I help you for, like, strapping a bomb to your throat? Then Reeve realizes right away what Foster's gonna ask. Because she's intuitive. Now then Foster passes a note to Philip that says, find out who I am. Now remember, early on in the book, Foster explained that he doesn't really know who he is. He doesn't know his real name. He doesn't know his family. He doesn't know anything. And he obviously gets an idea seeing all this information in this library about, people that have been brought into these facilities, that there might be information about him. And spoiler alert, later on, I just didn't edit this back in when I was revising this book. Not really revising when I was 13. Foster was previously at that facility, so I think he also has a hunch that some of his records might be there. Philip then promises he'll do that. He literally makes a promise. I'm going to do that for you, Foster. So in the next chapter, Reeve has literally been caught right away snooping an area in the facility with a forbidden sign. Like, come on, sis, you can do better than that. She's looking for an escape route and then literally gets caught. Forbidden. Like, why would you do that? Anyway, she's taken into a room where some dude is sitting and she's like, what the fuck? And lo and behold, it's actually Slayton. And it's really a striking, dramatic image. There's a spotlight on him and he's sitting on a stool and he's just turned around. Then he's super angry. And he's saying, get out now. He keeps repeating, get out. He turns around to reveal that his face is wounded, just like Tessie's. Remember, she had wounds. So cuts everywhere all over his skin. And Reeve is, really concerned for him immediately. And she's like, give me the knife. She doesn't want him having the knife. She doesn't want him to hurt himself. But he's really distraught. And when he turns the knife on himself again, to hurt himself again, she actually tackles him and stops him from doing that. Slate doesn't understand why Reeve would even care. He asks her, why would you care? And they end up arguing to the point where he throws a knife at her. He's sick and tired of her messing with him. But then when he throws the knife, she waits to literally die. She doesn't have time to jump out the way or anything. But then she doesn't die. So she turns around and guess who's there? Harrison. And guess who's holding the knife? Harrison. He caught that shit. Slate threw the knife and he caught it. Somehow. Who knew he had that talent? Clearly he didn't, because he says, well, he starts, his tone slightly impressed. That worked out a hell of a lot better than I thought. He's such an idiot. Anyway, so then Harrison restrains Slate and gets out of there with Reeve. He doesn't want to deal with him right now. But again, he doesn't him or anything. He just gets out of there. So while they're running out of there, Philip actually meets up with them. And in the meantime of Reeve being taken into this room and talking to Slate or whatever, the entire facility has gone to chaos. There's gunshots, screaming, people are trampling over each other. It's a lot. So as they run, Philip tells Reeve this is all his fault. And when she's like, you can't blame yourself, he's like, don't worry, I've made my decision. And she's like, what decision? What are you even saying? So then they turn a corner and there's Foster, and Foster's all beat up again and a guns to his head. This poor kid's been going through a lot here. So then Philip turns to Reeve and is like, thanks for showing me what real friendship is. You especially, but also especially Foster. Foster has shown me what friendship really is. And so this is my pleasure to do this. And she's confused, what are you even doing? He then points out a window. He points, right? And he tells her to jump. And that's when she notices a detonator in his hands. The guards around us are too busy dealing with shock or our distraction or Foster to even seem to notice. The deep gray of what I perceive to be smoke floats its way through my nose, burning my senses. The sound of screaming men and women and children only add to the confusion. My miracle. I prop myself out of the window, an explosion buzzing above me. It sends debris showering down over the ground like rain, the wreckage made of concrete, glass, and Philip's blood. So, if it's not clear, Philip blew up. So Reeve wakes up on the literal ground, after surviving the fall. She's fallen a lot. I don't know how she's still alive. But anyways, she's so distraught, because she realizes, Philip, he, detonated, and, all the guards, they're gone, he's gone, whatever. So, eventually, she finds Harrison, because Harrison also jumped out, Foster jumped out. They're all fine. The squad's fine. Harrison's arm is dislocated. She ends up, his shoulder, she ends up relocating. It's not a big deal, whatever. Though he's alive, and he's just confused as she is about how the explosion happened. It's not clear at all. They find Foster not that far away. And honestly, you'd think that he was the explosion because he's the one that had the explosive, but he's fine, right? No explosive. He's fine. Reeve tries to rouse him, but he's out cold. And that's when she realizes that Essie isn't with Harrison and freaks out. She's like, where is Essie then? And that's what Harrison says. I didn't really have a choice. So while you were away, I left her with Riot to come get you. And she's like, why would you leave her with Riot? And also, like, how did, like, Riot, you know, like Lord Farquaad, like, why did he doesn't actually look like Lord Farquaad, if I didn't make that clear. Like I said, he looks like Timu Dylan O'Brien. Why? Like, that's why. Like, he's an enemy. And he's like, well, because like he ended up running into us again, and like we captured him. And Essie kind of seems to like him. Anyway, when we escaped the store, because Harrison and Essie escaped the store, like we ran into Riot, we captured him, and he was the only person. Like, he says, well, I had to think on my feet, and I mean, I didn't have another choice, and I knew that leaving her with a weaponless loser was much better than bringing her out to a war front, so I tied him to a basketball hoop in that school and left her a good 10 feet away. And I just needed to make sure she wasn't completely alone. His logic makes no sense, but also is 13, so that's kind of funny. Then Foster wakes up suddenly, so they're like, they don't care anymore about what they were talking about. He's like, immediately, where's Philip? Because, like, they were so cute. Anyway, so Foster's like, where's Philip, the love of my life, etc. He doesn't actually say that. He's just like, where's Philip? He's, like, really concerned about him. Then Reeve breaks the news that, like, Philip sacrificed himself for them. Like, he's gone. And Foster's then like, why am I talking and not blowing up? He realizes, like, oh shit, like I'm actually talking and I'm still alive. And he doesn't know where the explosive went. I don't know where the explosive went. I'm assuming Philip probably took it off. I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Reeve doesn't know either. Like I said, just suspend your disbelief a little bit. Anyways, the three of them eventually start moving to head back to Essie. They start walking, right? So as they're walking, Reeve explains her theory on what happened with the explosive, because she's not quite certain herself. So she hypothesizes that when Philip pressed the detonator, it actually deactivated the explosive in Foster's neck. And then the detonator itself took on its energy and turned into explosive. Like, it turned into the bomb. Anyway, so as they walk through the rubble, Reeve realizes that before Philip detonated the explosive, he wasn't just pointing out the window, but at Foster. He was like, Foster. Anyways, so she then realizes that in the rubble, she needs to look for a file folder with Foster's information in it. His story that Philip promised to uncover. Remember? Philip was like, what can I do to make this up to you? And what does Philip has Princess Diana's accent? And he said, what can I do to make this up to you? Foster's like, you can find out about my life. And so Philip's like, got it, you know? So she asks Foster if he was previously in this facility. And then of course, like I mentioned before, like Foster's like, yeah, I was. So she's like, okay, I gotta find this file folder in the rubble. Like, I'm assuming like Philip just like yeeted that thing out the window, which is exactly what happened. So she finds the folder in the ash and pulls it out, and she's so relieved. And Foster realizes what it is right away, and he's really excited. Y'all, it's 3:30. I just had to take a quick second to hit another pizza pop. Anyway, we're back to finish this video up. So Foster's excited because he gets to find out more information about his family, his life, etc., etc. So there's actually a note inside of it from Philip, and I'm just including the whole note because I like practicing my English accent. Dear Foster and Reeve, this isn't the way I'd like to say goodbye, but I thought I'd do it here so you get a goodbye, even if it's not suitable for our situation. I just wanted to say thank you for being my friends for the couple of days you were here. Not a couple of days and giving your life. I know it was barely any time, but I feel as if it was forever. I know what I'm going to do tomorrow is not going to make you guys any happier, but I have to do this so you can live. I don't have to live any longer, but I know you do. Foster sucks in a quick breath before continuing. It was wonderful meeting you. It was wonderful meeting you and Foster. I found what you were looking for, and I hope you'll enjoy reading about yourself. For Reeve, thank you for being a great company these past few days. You have made me realize that there are some things in life that are worth dying for. Thank you again. My regards, Philip. Foster then pulls out, the stack of paper, and expecting it's going to be information on his life, like where he was born, what his actual name is, who his parents are. But the pages are literally blank. And Foster starts getting pretty upset because he's like, Philip died for literally nothing. But Harrison ends up changing the subject, that's his thing. By suggesting they just head back to Essie because like clearly things are going bad. I mean, they're like literally in rubble. Like there's going to be a lot of people around soon. So Reeve is also gutted too. But again, Harrison insists and leads them back to Riot's car, which, he stole from him. And, they're going to drive back to Essie. Eventually, they actually do end up getting back to Essie and Riot at the school. And, both of them are actually fine. So in this time, Essie and Riot actually have become kind of friends. Like, Essie likes him. Like they're friends, and I think Essie feels kind of safe with Riot, which is kind of crazy because like he's an evil. Anyways, so while Reeve tries to convince Riot he doesn't have to be on the bad side because she kind of sees like he clearly is like kind to Essie. Red shows up finally. Like, where was she? And with her is actually Slate, who seems completely out of it. Like, since the last time Reeve saw him at, like, the other facility and, like, he was not doing well or whatever. Reeve specifically says that it looks like he has a thin, glossy sheet glossed over his eyes. So then that really makes her realize, look, Slate might be kind of evil, but he's also just like a kid, like me, But then he also has a gun, and just from the look in his face, she knows that he plans not on using it on anybody else, if you're catching my drift. He has it for a reason, but not for anyone else. So she actually starts running to him, trying to get him to like shoot at her instead, because she doesn't want him to hurt himself. Like, she really does see something quite vulnerable in him. And so when he still won't listen to her, she starts actually doing something kind of mean. She starts taunting him with the fact that Tessie's dead again, because of her, knowing that'll make him so angry that he'll fire at her. And, that does actually work. And Reeve is shot through the arm. Again, none of her injuries have come back, really. Anyway, behind her, Reeve hears Foster shout at Harrison to take Essie and get out of there, which they do. So then Reeve and Foster, respectively, 1v1 Slate and Riot. And both she and Foster actually manage to get away from them. And Reeve actually quickly drags Foster, whose ankle is impossible to walk on, because remember, he hurt his ankle, to a random shed where she leaves him to meet back up with Harrison and Essie. So this is a romantical moment. Reeve finds Harrison and Essie, and they decide the best plan is to actually head back to the school for cover. But then when they do, they realize that the entire building is filled with smoke because, it's on fire. So they're already in the building when they realize it's on fire. How they didn't realize before they entered the fiery building, I don't know. But anyways, they realize they need to get out of there real fast. But the thing is, Reeve won't leave without that file folder of Foster's information. She's adamant. Like, even if the pages were blank, like, she just wants it. Like, she needs to have it. So she manages to actually save it and scoops a loose paper that's close to blowing away. And when she holds it up, some of the flames, like, in the room backlight the paper, and it reveals text, and it's actually invisible ink, stolen straight from Avatar, that moment with Zuko, with the scroll, remember? Anyways, so she actually sees information. Like, it's actually a city where Foster's actually from. I think it says something in Oklahoma. We'll find out where he is from in a second. So the building is now actually viciously on fire. Like, they really should not have been in there at all. So then the three of them, Harrison, Reeve, and Essie, run to a window again to jump out of, like, because they're always jumping out of shit. And this is the whole section. I'm just going to read it because I think it's better just to read it instead of, explaining it. Harrison presses Essie closer to his chest, wrapping his arms protectively around her head. His hand comes up and away from his face and brushes away strands of her hair, tucking a few stray pieces behind her ear. He presses his lips on top of her head and whispers something that sounds like, "I'm sorry, I love you, stay safe." I almost freeze where I am, knowing just well what he's going to do. We don't have time for 3 people to make it out of here alive. Harrison, no, I scream, right as he throws Essie out of the burning window. Yeeted that child. Oh my God. Anyway, he nods before shoving me toward the opening, his voice sounding hoarse and choked when he says one last thing before he shoved me out and the thick black smoke has swallowed him whole. I love you, Reeve. Ugh, that was such an iconic moment for me. Okay, like, let me have this. Anyways, so Reeve eventually wakes up. And the thing is, she's not with Essie. And she's not outside of the school. And nothing's on fire. But she's alone, She's devastated also that Harrison is dead. And when she tries to move, she realizes, like, she's actually restrained, like, in place. Now, she's confronted by a woman who's called Steinberg. And this is actually the previous leader of Waffle. And Reeve asks, where am I? Like, what the hell is happening? And Steinberg is like, this is Waffle? Well, she says, this is you, what do you mean? You still live here? And Reeve's like, what do you mean? Like, this is Waffle. Like, I blew that shit up. And Steinberg's like, Yeah, just the area you were in. Okay. So the most important thing here is that Reeve like has an entire internal monologue about, that info dumps like information about her, like her full name, like her parents, everything. So here, remember, your name is Reeve Aldane. You grew up in Rochester, New York with your parents Isabella and Max Aldane, along with your sister Christiane Aldane. You lived in the house on the corner of Berkeley Street. Your sister died when you couldn't hold her hand any longer when you were vacationing in Colorado. You were then brought to other homes, and then you were brought back here. You met Harrison and Foster, and you can't remember anything because you were stupid and set off an explosive that killed everyone but yourself. Harrison, Foster, Slate, and Riot, who I don't know if I mentioned they were also in Waffle. I think I forgot. They were in Waffle. It really doesn't matter. Clearly it doesn't come up. That's why if I didn't mention that, I don't remember. That's why such a wonderfully scripted video. That is why they recognized her, because they already know her. You could have pulled out kids, you could have helped them, but instead you left them to die. So that's Reeves. She was very upset. So when Reeve finishes her monologue, she's just infuriated. She needs to get out of here again. Like, how could they let that happen? She's so mad that these people who were running this place did not even try to save anybody, right? So through some badassery, she manages to get out of her restraints and to evacuate all the other kids in the building. And they're not many, it's like 10 of them. And then she lights that building on fire. Even though she feels vindicated about Waffle finally being gone, she's upset that her friend is dead, And on her journey back to her friends, like, she ends up taking a ride, like, and the guy ends up actually being Philip's grandfather. It's so random, like some other man from England. I don't know. He helps her get as close as she can, like, to Georgia, where her friends are. I actually don't know what state Waffle is in. I have no idea. I don't know. I'm assuming New York. I don't know. So the last place she saw her friends was there. So she's just going back. On her journey, Reeve actually steals a car, after Philip's grandpa, like, he can't take her anymore. So she ends up stealing somebody else's car. And then on her way back on the drive back again, closer to Georgia, she recalls the afternoon her sister died. So, like she kind of hinted at, said in the monologue, basically, like, her older sister Christiane was being stupid and was on the edge of the cliff and, like, in Colorado or whatever, and wouldn't listen to Reeve that it was icy, like, you're gonna slip or whatever. And she did slip. And Reeve tried to help her, but, like, her sister let go. She couldn't hang on anymore. And when Reeve ran back to the cabin she and her parents, were staying in for vacation, like, her mom literally, like, whacked her with a frying pan. So eventually Reeve drives past a park. It's a really big park. And the thing about the park that's weird is that there's, like, a lot of people there. Like, there's a crowd, there's a commotion, like, something is going on. So she gets out of the car. She has a bad feeling, and then she sees a person on the ground, and she realizes she knows that person. She knows who that is. It's literally Harrison. Guess who isn't dead? He's back. He is back. And Reeve commits more badassery again. It's not really important to get her and Harrison away from the chasers that are in the crowd, blah, 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 and into another car that they then steal again. Like, she's, like, GTAing up in this shit. Anyway, so Harrison is really injured because, he's in a fire and shit. And we don't really know exactly, but whatever. We don't know how he got to the park either, whatever. But he explains to her that Foster's actually fine and he's safe, but he doesn't actually know where Essie is. It's kind of concerning. The two of them have a long conversation about a whole bunch of things on the drive back. It's not really important. But specifically also why Harrison reported Reeve to the chasers. I don't know if you remember that. Early on in the book, Harrison's like, yeah, the reason why, like, Red was coming after us is because, like, we told her that, like, you would be here and, like, she's trying to capture you. Now, what we know is she's trying to capture you because, like, you kind of, like, exploded an entire home or whatever. And I, like, didn't trust you, so I turned you over. So that's when he tells her, I genuinely thought you were putting up a front. Like, I thought you were just pulling our legs, like, to try to, pull one up on us, like, maybe you were working with them now. Maybe you were caught, and to get yourself out of that shit, you ratted us out. So that's what Harrison says. It's sort of just to wrap up that loose end. It's kind of a random place to put it. Anyways, so Reeve and Harrison then continue their journey back to Foster and Essie and return to the school, which is now burned to rubble. So there, the two of them actually reunite with Foster, but there's no Essie to be found, which, everyone's quite concerned still. So all three of them set out to find Essie, and pretty much right away, Reeve is ambushed by Slate, who holds up a knife to threaten her, you know? So when Foster and Harrison realize, hey, Reeve's not behind us, like they turn around like, oh shit. And so they both threaten to kill Slate, like, you better step away, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're warning you. But Slate vaguely suggests that he actually, is hiding Essie. Like, they have Essie. So actually, like, you better not kill me because, bad things will happen. So at the same time, Reeve notices like a weird silver band around Slate's wrist that keeps like beeping like with a bright red kind of light. And he ends up like writhing in pain as soon as it beeps and just accidentally like lets her go. And she's able to like run back to like Foster and Harrison, but she can't figure out what the fuck is happening like to his wrist. Like, what is that device doing? Right. So then Slate calls for help because he's like, shit, like I lost her. You know what I'm saying? And he calls Riot, who then appears with Essie. And Essie's actually totally fine. She's like having the time of her life. She like really like trusts these guys. And she happily like runs over to Harrison and like takes his hand. Like she's totally fine. She's not traumatized. She's feeling good. So everyone is really confused as to why Slate and Riot are allowing that to happen. Because they're like, aren't you like, isn't she levered? You know what I'm saying? Slate ends up quietly taking Reeve aside to explain kind of what's up. But before he does, the red beeping starts again on the band. I don't really know why she would trust him, but anyway, she just goes off in the corner to talk to him. Anyway, so this thing's beeping and he's in pain, and while he's in pain, he just like completely switches up and starts begging Reeve to help him. Like he's genuinely distressed. He's like, please help me, because this thing is like hurting him and like he's just having a hard time. She is so concerned to the point where she calls for Riot to come help. And Riot's kind of like, he's softening up, right? So he does indeed go over to his friend because that's his best friend. Like, that's his Harrison equivalent, So Essie is straight up also panicking because she's really worried for both of them, who she knows she cares about. She trusts them, right? So in the distance, Reeve actually hears Slate tell Riot that he doesn't want to do this anymore. And she's like, what does that mean? Like, he's switching sides? You know what I'm saying? But then they're interrupted by Red, who mocks Slate's crying because she's so fucking rude. And she points a gun at all of them, like brandishing this weapon. And she's like, how about we get this show on the road? Red says with a clap for emphasis. Like, it's giving kindergarten teacher. Anyways, this is the dialogue. How about we get this show on the road? How about no? Harrison fires back. They could never make me hate you, King. Like, they could never make me He's such an idiot. His personality is the exact same. When I say that Harrison, like, has not changed at all in, like, the last 1.2 million words or whatever, how long this series is over the last like 15 projects or whatever, he hasn't changed. Red starts deciding who she wants to first, right? And she chooses Essie. She's like, I'm that evil. And Harrison vaguely threatens her. He's like, you better not. Like, he still has his gun out. He's like, I will pew. Like, it's done, And she sees that as a challenge. So then she's like, hey guys, why don't all four of you, Foster, Reeve, Harrison, and Essie, all run? And on the count of 10, I will come running after you in this killer game of tag, right? So whoever I find, I'll kill. And then whoever I don't find, like, you're free to go. Like, I won't bother you. Like, you'll probably still, be chased by other people, but, like, not me. So, whatever. So, I mean, they start running because, like, what choice do they have? Like, the choice is that Harrison has a weapon and he could just, like, end this moment. But he doesn't, right? And so they all end up running away. And Reeve splits up with Essie because, she's the least injured out of all of them and can protect her the best, where Foster and Harrison remain together. So Reeve ends up sprinting away with Essie in tow and comes across a random small town. Like, she runs and there's a town. So she breaks into a house, like, through a window, and there's quite literally a family inside, and they're like, oh my God. And they run out or whatever, but she ends up hiding, like, Essie inside a laundry hamper. Like, she dumps her in there and, like, tosses the clothes over. And then she runs into the bathroom and, like, crouches in the tub. It's not a great hiding place. So then chapter 31 is upon us, and Red has made her way into the house looking for Reeve. Since there's nowhere to go, Reeve just accepts her fate. And Red kicks in the door, gun drawn, like gun blazing. She's like, I think it's time you died already. That's what she says. Caused way too much trouble, and I'm honestly sick of playing games. That's so funny that you said that, considering you were the one who suggested this game. Anyways, so Reeve says, I leave my face on my knees, hearing a shot, feeling blood trickle down my ear, not hearing much, another shot, then only faint buzzing around me. I feel my head drop hard on the concrete tile beneath me, warm blood pooling around me. So Reeve eventually is actually roused. Like, she lives by someone shouting for her, so she can hear her name being called. And she realizes it's actually Harrison talking to her, and then Foster, like, also calling after her. So a bullet has grazed her ear, but otherwise, like, she's okay. She's shaken up, but she, the boys, and Essie actually managed to make it out of the house because Harrison shot Red a couple times. Not sure why he didn't kill her. We find out later. He did not kill her in this moment. The squad gets away for a bit and ends up resting somewhere in the middle of the literal woods. Like, again, like, it's gotten dark. I don't know how. It's been like 5 minutes since they last spoke to these people, so I don't know how time has moved so fast, but it's dark. They just need to sleep. So as a way to, like, create some levity, Reeve takes out Foster's file, which she kept tucked into her jacket. And if you remember, she remembered how to read it. Like, she figured it out when she was, like, in the school and the fire, the light. She realized if there's light shining, you can see the text. So I don't know why Foster's was like that when the other ones weren't. The ones in the facility, like, she was reading them. Anyways, so she tells him to hold like a light to it. So I think there's like a campfire going. It's not really safe. People can find you. But anyways, he does that and is amazed to see information about his own life printed out. He's like really excited about this. So we find out his real name is actually August, and that's actually still his name. And he's from Collinsville, Oklahoma. His parents still live there with his sister, whose name is Holly, who's important in book 2. If you want a book 2 summary, I might do it. Anyways, so it's a reprieve they all need because the next morning they'll be running for their lives again. Like, it's good. Like, it feels good. Foster knows who he is now. It's a good way to end things before things get bad again. Now, the squad is indeed running for their lives again. But this time, Reeve has positioned herself between an angry Harrison and a broken-looking Slate. There, no transition scenes. Like, we just bopped right into that shit. So apparently, Slate and Riot found them overnight. Obviously, they had like a really conspicuous fire going. Anyways, so Reeve tries to reason with Slate that he doesn't actually have to hurt anyone. She's sort of seen his humanity kind of come out. She can tap into it. So when Slate lunges for Harrison, she intercedes him. She tries again to reason that he's actually a good person. Slate, like, can be better than this, right? Or at least, he can try to, but he doesn't want to listen. But then at the same time, the silver band starts beeping on his wrist again, and he's in, like, serious pain. He's, like, in agony, physically and emotionally. He can't take this anymore. Riot then explains that Red is the one who put the band on Slate so that with any negative thought that he has, he experiences pain. I don't know the science behind that, but it's a dystopian novel. So he's clearly anguished. Riot's anguished that his best friend's in pain. And even Essie tries to comfort Slate. But then Red shows back up, of course. And Harrison is like, don't worry, fam, I got my guns, And he says to this woman, do you really have to do this? Like, can't you just move the fuck on with your life and leave us alone? Which is like a really good question. I don't know why she's so obsessed. So maybe she's getting like a really good bonus. Like, if she like the group, you know what I'm saying? So Red asks if Slate and Riot are even on her side anymore. Because she's like, why are you hanging out with them and not killing them? And they both say they aren't, actually. So quickly, Slate throws a knife, because he's like a knife wizard, into her arm. And when he turns around, he ends up giving like Essie a hug or whatever, then tells everyone to run, like, get out of there. So it's official. Riot and Slate are like on the good guy side now. So now that the squad and Slate and Riot are on the same side, they all run away together. And Reeve realizes that the reason Harrison hasn't killed Red is because he doesn't want to. Because he's had so many opportunities. It's not because he doesn't want to keep his friends safe. He just doesn't want to be a murderer. Like, he's 17, So Red is gaining on them. And when she does, she pulls out a gun and aims it at Reeve. So Reeve's certain she's going to shoot her, But then she flips the gun to Harrison at the last second and fires. As if Harrison couldn't take any more L's. You know what I'm saying? Anyways. So when Foster tries to see if he's okay, because that's his best friend. Like, nothing matters more to Foster than Harrison, really. Harrison doesn't move, and like he looks completely dead, and like he's so scared or whatever. So even Slate and Riot have to move Essie away because she's like screaming, and Red is still like shooting at them and shit. But then Harrison, who is alive again, because he's defying death, rings out another shot. And guess what? Down goes Red, shot in the calf. So Harrison had been hit through the hand by Red. That doesn't come back ever again. So, let's not think about it. But the whole squad and Slate and Riot managed to gain more distance from Red because, she's slowed down with her calf. But then Red suddenly grabs a silver remote, and when she presses a button on it, Slate literally collapses in agony. It's really, really sad. And she talks mad shit about him and aims her gun at him. Like, she's real mad. Like, I should have gotten rid of you earlier. Like, you're just dead weight, blah, 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 blah. But before she can shoot, Essie grabs her gun and throws it. Like, 6-year-old. But Red has another gun. And she pulls the trigger on Essie. But who ends up falling is not Essie. It's actually Riot, who ran in front of her. It's pretty rough. Anyways, so Reeve takes this moment to kind of attack Red, and the two of them brawl, like rolling around on the ground and shit. And Slate is like in shock because he's looking at his best friend who like did not make it. So in retaliation, Slate grabs one of his throwing knives and yeets that thing like right into Red's heart. Anyways, so Essie also then stands over Riot, and she's like really upset because like that was her friend. Like they trusted each other. But Harrison tries to tell her they have to leave. They have to get out of there because like it's still not safe. Coast is not clear. But when Foster notices Red raise her gun again, he picks up the first one that Essie had thrown, remember? And he fires. And then Red's body just, goes still. Like she's gone. And Reeve is like relieved, like, thank God, like it's over. And then she turns around and she sees Essie, and Essie's chest has begun to bleed. So I'm not going to detail it because I feel like it's like really upsetting. Like I feel like when I was younger, I did not realize how upsetting this was. But like Essie does not make it because Red managed to get a shot off before Foster did. And it's really sad. There's like a whole scene. They lay her to rest. Everyone is really distraught, especially Harrison. So Foster realizes that Slate has been nowhere to be found, like nowhere. Reeve ends up finding him. Like Reeve ends up going out to find him because she knows that he was really distraught about what happened to Riot. He just saw this thing happen with, this little girl. And Slate is devastated by the losses of both Riot and Essie. And Reeve tries to talk to him, but quickly realizes he has a knife and he has unfortunately stabbed himself. He also does not make it. That was really heavy. So now there's only Reeve, Foster, and Harrison. And they actually end up heading back to the school that was previously burned down. It's just kind of like the only place they can think to go. And there's like nowhere else to go except like the schoolyard or whatever. So they sit out there, and Harrison asks to borrow some of Foster's papers. And with them, he actually folds a couple paper cranes, and he has a monologue about like freedom and wanting to be like a bird and shit. Like it's one whole thing, and he's really sad or whatever. It's kind of his way of grieving. But yeah, and then that leads us to the final image where this is the last sentence of book 1, where 30 seconds after I wrote it, I was like, there needs to be a book 2. And with that, the three of us watch into the swirls of red and orange under our lids, enjoying the peace we've made out and the okay we have together. That is Fostered. The end is really intense. Every single time I think about it, I'm like, oh my God, was I okay? And it was so interesting to revisit this because, fun fact, I have never reread this book in my entire life. That's the whole plot of the terrible book that I wrote when I was 13 years old. What do you think? Because I think it's pretty good. 3 stars. 3 stars out of 5, I would say is pretty Thank fun. You so much for joining me. Do you want book 2? Let me know in the comments. Also, I am so curious. You made it to the end. Tell me like what your favorite part was like from the book that I was able to sort of narrate. I thought that this was going to be really boring because I thought the plot was kind of shit. So, if you had a favorite part, let me know. And then also like maybe who your favorite character is. I think I would love to know. Thanks so much for watching. If you've been here to celebrate this series this whole time, oh my God. I've been on YouTube for so long, almost as long as I've been writing this series. So thanks for being here, and I will see you guys in another video. Bye.